Welcome to One Insight. My name is Rich Litvin. I grew up in London and I now live in LA. And this is a podcast for extraordinary top performers. You see, I've coached some of the most successful and talented people on the planet. I see what most people cannot see, and I dare to say what most people wouldn't dare to say. And what I know about success is that on the other side of it, it can actually be lonely. You can feel like more of an imposter the more successful you become. And when you're the most interesting person in the room, you're actually in the wrong room. I coach around insight. Life looks one way, something happens, the world looks different, and your entire world changes. It can happen in an instant. And this podcast is called One Insight because a single insight can change everything.
I'm calling this episode a life-changing insight. You see, I can promise anybody that if you and I sit down for a coaching conversation, whether it's 10 minutes or 2 hours, you'll have a life-changing insight. Will your life change? Well, that's up to you. But an insight, absolutely. Because I spend my time listening to your listening of the world. I spend my time observing how you observe the world. And I'm a witness to how you speak your world into reality. I'm about to speak to Sophie, and Sophie's been a friend of mine since 2009. And I'm listening to the world that she creates. And there's a story that she's told many times, but I catch it in this conversation and I wonder, why is she telling it now? And it takes us down this road of real transformation. It takes us down this road of true insight. And you can hear it at the end. There's just this silence from Soph. And in that silence, everything changes. I invite you, if you're a coach, to practice listening to your clients listening and to see through their eyes and to be a witness to how they speak their world into reality. And watch what can occur as you do so. Here you go. Here's a life-changing insight. Hi, Soph.
Hi.
Hey, well, I'm looking forward to speaking to you because I was just doing the calculation. We've known each other for 13 years. For anyone who's listening, I came to LA in 2009. I didn't know a soul other than my wife. One person I knew who lived in San Diego said, "Hey, I'm coming to a party. You want to come?" Introverts don't often say yes to going to a party, but I didn't know many people. So, okay, I'm in. And it was your party at your house and you were so gracious and it was so fun to connect with you. And we've been friends ever since. And so it's fun to be talking to you today. You've got a track record of success in business and in life and doing all sorts of fun and interesting things. And today we get to play however you like to play.
I love that.
So right now I'm already coaching you. I run a program called How to Coach a Superhero, where I'm coaching 5 extraordinary people, and you're one of them. And I said, well, I have a podcast too. You want to come here? And you said, yep. And we can go anywhere you like. What's on your mind?
Wow, what's on my mind? I love the idea of this insight being where often transformation occurs. That's a little bit of the theme of the One Insight. And I've had a number of conversations along the years of people like, change is difficult and change takes time. And I've always had a bit of a, really? kind of reaction to that. And when I was reading about your notion of this insight, it made sense to me that sometimes it's, you give me a different perspective or a distinction maybe that I didn't think of, and I take it on. I don't need time. I don't need, years of like, is this true? Like I can just try it. And if it fits, go with that. And I think that's very profound. I think that's a very profound way to look at change and transformation. So I'm looking to have a conversation where some insights are revealed to both of us.
Nice. Yeah, I like to say, I can promise anyone you will have a life-changing conversation if you and I talk.
Yeah.
Because I coach around insight, and an insight can change everything. What I can't promise is what they'll do with that.
Yes.
So you can get an insight, and those of you who are watching on video will see, my hands are close to my face. I pull your hands away, and suddenly it's like, oh, there's clarity. But then a moment later, the hands pull back, and you can't see clearly any longer.
Yeah.
So it's up to you. You have to work at it. You can't just have an insight and that's it. Life has changed. It's, are you willing to do anything with that?
Yeah.
So where in your life, like where is there something that's cloudy right now? Where is there a big dream or a block for you where you'd like an insight?
There's clearly like I could look at my life in chunks, like most people do, maybe per year. Like you just said, what was it in 2009? I'm like, I don't count in years, but I kind of count in relationship to myself a little bit. Oh yeah, that period I was not very kind to myself. Oh yeah, that period I was very supportive of myself. Now I feel like like there's something birthing of me no longer even being in that conversation and just showing up at a higher level. And I'd love to hear, like, what are your insights around yourself, maybe? Like, how did that shift for you, that you went from the introverted that showed up in this town and knew nobody and somehow really established yourself as a very solid, you're one of the forces in this spirit of coaching. And can you share, was there a moment where you went from, can I do this? Am I good enough to do this? Did that shift to, hell yeah?
You know what? I think our journey of transformation, if you can picture an upside down cone, so like an ice cream cone or one of those traffic cones, and there's a line that goes around it that curves around and gradually goes upwards. And this is life. And as you go around that cone, you're coming, through your life. And I think there are some themes that go along that cone. So you hit the self-esteem theme and the relationship theme and the theme around business and the theme around money and the theme around sex and whatever it is for you. And you begin to master it at that level. But then you come around, you hit it again at a higher level. So you handle your money stuff here, but 5 years later, you're dealing with money stuff again. Now you're making more money, perhaps you're more successful, but you're handling a different kind of money issue. Now, sometimes we hit those themes enough times that we can handle them forever. And sometimes for some of us, we're still working on that stuff for most of our lives. So, confidence has been a theme for most of my life. I lacked it massively when I was young. And there are moments now when I feel a complete lack of confidence. And there are moments when confidence is not something I'm even conscious of. So that confidence theme I've worked on, and it comes up every once in a while as I play a bigger game. I was talking to a friend recently about the fact that I'm taking everyone in 4PC through this is our year of visibility. And I only take people in 4PC through something that I'm working on myself. It's time to me to be more visible. And he said, you've got to do the healing first. It really struck me that, he's right. It's not just about what tools I use, how I step into thought leadership. There's some deep healing I need that goes back a long way around the reasons I don't want to be visible. And I'm pretty visible in the world of coaching, but there's places where I'm not willing to be and I still hide. And so there's healing to go on there. So as I share that, what comes up for you?
Well, I right away went to a question of, because I agree that if we only resolve the tool around it or another hack of sorts to resolve, but we haven't resolved the healing is a good word for it. I mean, in my world, there's also a notion of incompatible beliefs. Like when I was very overweight, as you know, I used to be 350 pounds. The journey that allowed me to be the 57 that I am now, it wasn't about which diet. It was because the way I eat matters. Obviously, if I sit there and eat burgers and, shakes all day long, that would probably not have helped. But none of it worked until this deeper healing of me feeling safe, not hiding behind a giant castle, which made sense. At the time, it made sense. And it was a very successful survival coping mechanism until it wasn't. And so it struck me right away that it's like, what is that how we transform? We just kind of look at the next level. Like the reason we're not doing something, whether it's making money or putting out a new book or being in a healthy relationship or whatever it is it that somehow there's a part of us that's still walking around with some broken wings? Do you think?
Well, I have a thought for you. I'm going to be provocative and see where this lands. I used to call myself an accidental entrepreneur. Because I was a high school teacher for 15 years, got fired, and began coaching, and became an entrepreneur without even realizing it, not knowing what it was. And until it was last year when I realized, I've been coaching for 16 years. I've been a coach for longer than I was a high school teacher. And
Mhm.
that felt like a solid identity. This one never felt solid. And what I notice is that you still refer to Sophie, the woman who used to be 300 pounds and lost 166 pounds. And there are people watching this and listening to this who don't know her. She's so far in the past that most people will never know she existed. And I wonder what would happen if you start. I don't any longer call myself an accidental entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur in my blood now. What if you were just Soph and you didn't have to ever mention, not that you're ashamed of it or you hide it, you're willing to talk about the past if it comes up, but you don't mention it first.
Yeah, it comes up. It is part of maybe it's part of who I have grown out of a little bit. Like sometimes I remember when I was thinking about being thinner when I was larger, there was definitely I don't feel like I'm part of the people when I lose weight. When I'm thin, I'm like this kind of like I got my shit together. I'm not part of the struggling mass anymore or something. And so I feel like when I mention it, and I sometimes I'll be in a speech and won't talk about it. And then at the end, people will ask, well, what do you know of struggle in life? And I'll be like, wow, well, let me tell you about that. Like I do relate to the suffering. And I feel like when I don't at least connect that is happened to me, but that I have made it happen to myself, this giant weight loss, I feel like it's yeah, I feel like people have less compassion for me a little bit. Like it's a way that I connect deeply with people like, oh yeah, she is one of us, even if your issue is not weight.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
it's
I was
like,
talking about this with you on the superhero call this week around when you introduce yourself to people, you want a way that they say two things. One, they say, wow. And two, they say, oh, just like me.
mhm,
So I get it. There's been this is your struggle and you want people to know like, hey, I might be doing amazing things. You built a multi-million-dollar business. You're building another one right now. But hey, I'm just as human as you are.
yeah,
And I'm not pointing to that. There's a place where that's valuable. You're on stage to give a talk. You're sharing some ideas. You want them to be inspired and to connect.
yeah,
I'm talking about the fact that you mentioned it just now. Now I know that story. It wasn't necessarily relevant in this moment. So again, this is me provoking your thinking. I'm not
mhm.
attached to being right on this, but I'm saying, what if you could just create a little bit of space between that old identity and who you are now? What might happen from that place?
Hmm.
The reference to that rather than the here's where I am and here's where I'm going.
I guess it creates a tiny bit of not confusion. I understand what you're saying, but it creates a little bit of, huh? Because you mentioned you used to be a teacher and you were fired, and I've heard you mention that many times as well, as a connectedness. It's a connective tissue of who you are a little bit. I'm wondering, how is it different?
Well, bear in mind the context in which I do it. I do that in a context of where I'm helping coaches understand where I came from.
Mm-hmm.
You raised that in the conversation with me just now. We've known each other for 13 years. There was no reason to mention that to me in that moment, and yet you did. That's why I'm commenting on it and exploring, looking at it. Let's see. I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious.
Yeah, no, it is definitely. I mean, if we had started somewhere else, I would have told you, hey, I've lost, the weight. I've quit 3 packs a day. I used to smoke 3 packs a day. And I used to live in a country where I didn't know the language when I moved here. When I came from France, it's like I do relate to. I like my journey of transformation. I like when people are like, "Really, you lost 200 pounds? Wow!" Like it creates like a certain. Yeah, it does. It helps me establish who I am in a way that maybe I no longer need. That's
Well, and that's what I'm curious, right? Not attached to being right on this one, not attached to you letting go of this story, but who would you be without that story?
I'd be a very, very successful. I'm a human that takes on pretty much everything that needs tackling. So it's, when it's the weight, it was the weight. When it's the business. When I tackle things. That's who I am. I'm someone
You
who,
know who else you'd be, so?
no, who would I be?
Be a loving, compassionate, kind, caring, thoughtful person.
I am.
You'd be her too.
I am. Yeah, I am. And courageous. I'm very brave.
Yeah. Yes, you are. Yeah.
It would be an interesting exercise to go the next, I don't know, a month, whatever timing I'd want to put on it. But it'd be interesting to, like, even if I catch myself wanting to talk about it, that I wouldn't.
Yeah.
That I just literally would be like, yes, let's take the conversation somewhere else altogether and see. I mean, right now it creates this discomfort of like, wait, but that's my, that's my crutch a little bit. That is my way to connect. I do see that it does cause instantly, oh wow, do I need someone to think wow? Like I have all sorts of other wives we can talk about. So maybe that's one way to play for me, is to take it for the period of time, a month, where I just treat it as like, oh yeah, that's that thing I don't talk about anymore, and see what it does.
Yeah. Yeah. I think something interesting would occur. We can't know yet in advance what it would be, but that ability to not have to talk about it. And we're not saying you can't talk about it. You don't have to. It would be a great experiment, I think.
Yeah, me too. It's funny because as you were just saying that, I dropped deeper. Which, do I feel not compassionate? Is there a part of me that feels like I'm not that person you just described deeply? Am I caring and compassionate and, deserving of someone's, oh, wow. I mean, not pity, but a little bit of like, wow, is there a part of me that worries or that has fear that I'm actually not as caring as I sometimes put out? And by doing this, somehow it gives people compassion, right? Like it softens the projection, or it softens they know where to put me a little bit faster when I speak to that. It's like, it's reassuring that they know, oh, this is the chick who did that. Mm-hmm. But why would I I am a very compassionate person. So how about maybe the weight story is, do you know how sometimes we do, like we have a belief that wasn't there to begin with. So then we cover it up and then it comes back up to like help us go back to the initial thing, which is I am a very compassionate and kind and beautiful human, which I covered up for years with the aggressive behaviors or, whatever to protect me. But now maybe it's time. I don't need protection. I'm not in danger that way.
So look, there's my theme, right? We're going around this cone and you're hitting this theme around safety.
Yeah.
Again, safety many years ago was about having enough weight that you felt you could protect yourself from the world.
Yeah.
And then it became ways of speaking about that old story that gave an instant connection and created safety.
Yeah.
Maybe the next level up is, I'm just safe.
Safe without any story. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's hitting home. That's profound. Yeah.
And so for those of you who are listening, this is the sound of insight. We think it sounds like Archimedes jumping out the bath and saying Eureka and running down the street. It actually sounds like Soph saying, yeah. And she goes quiet and she looks off into the distance because the world just shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
This is the power of a life-changing insight.
Yeah. It's funny because as you said that, I saw almost like Lego, when you click one Lego and it's like, the whole thing goes down. Because I started looking at, oh, well, if that's true here, then it's true here. Like it almost like it put things in place in all these different. Reminds me of have you ever seen the Huberman sphere? It's like this little ball of plastic, and then you pull on one of the thing and it opens up like as a giant ball. And someone used it in some class that I was in to describe that every one of the places you can pull, all of them opened up the big ball. Like one awareness, one insight, in the context of what we're saying, it's like one insight plays out. Oh, it plays out in my relationship. It plays out in sex. It plays out in money. It plays out in pickleball and food and, all of it. It's like opened up the whole ball.
So where I like to go when we're in this place of insight is I think one of the most powerful coaching tools we have is gentle reflection. Mm-hmm. So sit with this, journal on it, do morning pages with it, go for walks, and we'll talk. Thanks for playing, Soph.
Mm-hmm.
For most of human history, it wasn't called coaching, it was called leadership. And it's what I love to do, to coach people, to lead people, and to mess with people's thinking. If you'd like more of this, or if you'd like to learn more about our community of extraordinary top performers, go to richlitvin.com/oneinsight.